Tonight, on the update, we talk about President Obama's speech. Mitt Romney and Rick Perry duke it out at the GOP debate. Also, we're going to talk about the wildfires that hit Texas this week. President Obama made a job speech last Thursday night about creating jobs across the country. By offering tax breaks to small business, creating infrastructure jobs, working on our nation's stuff. He said the entire plan would be paid by closing tax loopholes and by more spending cuts. Last Wednesday night, the GOP debate was held, and the two front-runners, Mitt Romney and Rick Perry, had many disagreements. But the biggest disagreement was on Social Security. Perry continued his claim that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. He says that the people in their 20s will never see the money that they are putting in. Mitt Romney agreed with Rick Perry that Social Security needed fixing, but he says the difference between him and Perry was that Perry wanted to do away with Social Security, while Mitt Romney wanted to make it better. This week, a power outage happened that stretched all the way from Arizona to California. A construction worker was working on a power line when it sorted out, and it caused a power outage all the way to California. But after 12 hours after the incident, the power came back on. Wildfires have hit Texas. The worst was in Bastrop County, and I think you'll agree with me when I say that our hearts and prayers go out to those that have lost their homes in this tragedy, and that we all need to be careful when a drought hits Texas. In case you're wondering how many homes were destroyed, over 1,400 have been destroyed. Alright, here to talk about one of the best westerns out there, Fistful of Dollars. Please welcome Clint Eastwood. Mr. Eastwood, good to have you with us. Mr. Eastwood, could you tell us a little bit how Fistful of Dollars came about?
When I was approached to do Fistful of Dollars, there was no such thing as a spaghetti western. There were a few westerns that had been made by Italian companies, a few small ones, but they were never dubbed that particular thing. That came later on. In fact, I think it was the Japanese, they used to call them, in order to segregate the American westerns from the Italian-made ones. They called the Italian ones macaroni westerns. And so that's how that came about. In fact, the idea of making a western in Italy sounded odd, but then it turned out, well, we're going to make it in Spain, and the terrain in Spain it's very much like Arizona in some spots or parts of California. When I was first making a Fistful of Dollars, it was a western version, a western remake of Yojimbo, and I always loved Yojimbo, so that's what inspired me to take the project.
Now I have to ask you, since you're filming overseas, are there any quirks, working with Italians?
Sergio didn't speak any English, and I didn't speak any Italian when I first went over there. He knew goodbye, and I knew arrivederci, and that's about it. So we had a wonderful woman from Poland who had been working for Constantine Films, and she spoke many, many languages and Italian fluently, and she sort of represented Constantine in Italy, so she interpreted. And her English had been learned by Americans after World War II, so she knew American-style English with all the slangs and what have you.
Baxter's over there? Too dangerous.
It was so funny because you'd be doing a scene, and in your eye line off of one side of the camera or another, you'd see a couple guys back there playing frisbee. We were shooting in Almeria, and he needs a tree for a hanging tree with a noose on it. He just wanted a tree with a noose, a symbol as I ride by. This was back on Fistful of Dollars. He couldn't get a tree. There was an old tree that was in somebody's yard. It was dead, but it was in somebody's yard. And so all of a sudden, the guy, they go in, he sends a crew in, and they cut the tree down at the guy's yard. Well, the guy comes out the front door and says, "What are you doing, cutting down the tree?" And he says, "Oh, we're from the highway department. This is a a danger. This tree might fall on the road, so we're taking it out. And the guy kind of, oh, okay. But that's the kind of creativity he'd use. And we were once shooting in A Few Dollars More, and he wanted a crane. We didn't have a crane. We couldn't afford a crane on these pictures. But the De Laurentiis company had a crane nearby. In the summertime in Spain, they have a Catholic holiday about once a week. There's a different holiday. Well, there was a Catholic holiday coming up. So, and the De Laurentiis company wasn't going to be able to shoot, being an Italian company, a Catholic-oriented group. But Sergio went to the bishop and said, "We're not Catholics. We're a Jewish company, and we're over here shooting this film, and we're not Catholic. So could we film that day?" So the bishop gave his permission. Sure, you guys can go ahead and film. So we went to De Laurentiis and said, "You can't film, but we're going to film. Can we have your crane?" So he borrowed the crane. It was a great experience.
Also, this Sunday is the 10th anniversary of 9/11. I think all of us need to take time out on that day and to remember the people that lost their lives. Good night.